Hello, my name is Ben Hunter. Welcome to Team 34's AI-driven waveform presentation. I, along with Matt Hasty, Jim Stewart, and Albert Kalusian, have had the privilege of working with General Dynamics over the course of the last 2 semesters to research, construct, and implement a machine learning code to correctly identify waveforms. I'm going to give a brief overview of the hows and whys of the project, and then we will go into detail of how the project has and will progress. This project was originally inspired by the Army RCO AI Challenge. This challenge had the aim of using artificial intelligence to recognize and correctly classify various signals in real time, thereby allowing electronic warfare officers to react quickly to information obtained in the field. As you're probably guessing, this was easier said than done. When we stop to think about the sea of signals that are being created by various devices today, it's easy to see how one individual waveform could be lost. Correctly identifying a signal from the noise around it is difficult enough. However, adding the extra chore of classifying that signal makes the task seem nearly impossible. Our team's goal is just that. We initially began with signal detection. Is it a signal or is it noise? But going forward, we will classify the signal into 4 categories: LTE, OFDM, WiMAX, or is it just noise? We will also experiment with different network architectures to see which produces the most accurate results. Over 90% accuracy is our goal. So why do this? What are the benefits of waveform detection? As mentioned, national security and defense can be boosted when a single signal can be plucked from the ocean of noise and classified in real time. But what about you and me? How frustrating it is when a call drops or our wireless internet becomes unresponsive. With an AI waveform detection algorithm, telecommunication companies could detect signals present on the spectrum and more efficiently allocate new signals to parts of the spectrum that are underutilized, thereby avoiding overcongestion and improving reliability. So, how does all this work? Computers are amazing at logic, but when it comes to pattern recognition, they have fallen short in the past. Our own brains are much better suited for this task, but slow by computer standards. The implementation of neural networks attempts to combine the two, training the computer to act like our brain. Simply put, we teach a computer like a small child. Feed it thousands of waveforms and let it guess. Then, each time it's wrong, we correct it. The end result is it learns. And if our algorithm is correctly set up, it will learn with high accuracy. So let's get started. Next, we will discuss how our project has evolved, the progress so far, and then delve into work we have going forward. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ben. Hi, I'm Albert Kalustian, and I'm going to talk to you about how our project's goals have changed since last semester, how we prepared our data samples, and about our first attempt at creating a neural network. Last semester, we were given the task by General Dynamics to train a neural network to find data signals in noise to study the limits of a neural network for this application. When we began our second semester, we decided to increase the scope of our project to train as many networks as we can within the allotted time. So far, we have been able to train 2 architectures with mixed results and are preparing our third attempt. Before we get into the progress with those attempts though, let's talk about data samples. For this project, the data types of interest are constrained to 3 major modulation types, specifically LTE, OFDM, and WiMAX data signals. To begin training, we were given a sample of 80,000 data samples from General Dynamics, equally split between the 3 modulation types and shaped noise. To simulate the difficulty that comes with using large data samples in the real world, we were given simulated inaccuracies in the data as well. Of the 80,000 data samples we were given, 20% of them were either zero data, mislabeled, or missing random metadata keys. Here is an example of one of our metadata keys from a single data sample, with some sensitive metadata blurred out as per General Dynamics. It was up to us to find a system to differentiate between the mislabeled data and missing data types, and to correctly label them for our training samples. After looking through the data samples and creating an algorithm that laid out all the metadata in a single spreadsheet, we were able to find patterns in the data that made it clear which of the data samples were mislabeled and which contained zero data. We created an algorithm to clean and relabel the data, and after showing our results to our mentors at General Dynamics, we felt confident in considering our data now cleaned and ready for training. One of the neural network types we attempted was a multi-layer perceptron. In this approach, backpropagation is utilized to create a series of theta parameters to create a hypothesis model, and then optimizes them for the data using a sigmoid cost function. The neural network uses gradient descent to survey, learn, and guess the signal type based on the given data samples. In this screenshot, the cost function and theta parameter equations implemented are displayed. Basically, the neural network makes a guess and then is rewarded or penalized based on how good that guess was. The process then repeats over and over again until the J cost function reaches a minimum, and the hypothesis model reaches its most efficient state. Though this process works generally well in most machine learning applications, most basic MLP networks are not equipped to deal with complex data. Also, MLP neural networks can be notoriously slow and computer-intensive when the data samples are very large, so the computational and time requirements for this approach are very high. Due to these constraints and restrictions, the overall efficacy of our MLP approach was only about 54%. We discussed these results with our mentors at General Dynamics and learned that they had similar results in the past with MLP networks. Ultimately, this model is not optimal for our project. In this section, we reviewed how our goals for the project have been updated, how we treated the given data samples, and the progress with our first attempt at creating a neural network. In the next section, Matthew Hasty will discuss the continuing progress of our project. Thank you.
Thank you, Albert. Hello, I'm Matt Hasty from Team 34. I will be updating you on our progress using convolutional neural networks for binary classification between LTE signals and shaped noise, as well as the initial findings in classifying between three signals. I will then mention a type of recurrent neural network known as long short-term memory and the future work we have planned for the final months of our project. The convolutional neural network, or CNN, has commonly been recognized as the best architecture for image recognition. As such, almost all commonly found examples show how images can be taken into convolutional layers for feature identification. The image input layer segments the image into a user-defined two-dimensional array. Figure 1 on the left is a simple example of an image segmented into a 5x5 array through the input layer of a CNN. Because our communication signals can be viewed as a time series set of discrete values, our input signals must be of uniform dimensions and the input layer must be set to segment our input into these same dimensions. For example, a signal's real and imaginary parts can be expressed as an array of x rows by 2 columns. The input layer is then set to x rows by 2 columns. This ensures matching of the layers. The convolutional layer then looks at the input through a user-sized filter, such as figure 2. As our array has a maximum of 2 in one direction, the task becomes an exercise in determining how many rows the filter should cover to get accurate depictions of the key distinguishing features of the signals. In network training, the first iteration starts with blind guesses for the signals, and whether or not the guesses are correct is applied as weights for predicting the signal during the next iteration. The key for this, and in general all neural networks, is to determine the key features that define a class. These two trainings were done on a network with a single convolutional layer. The blue graph on the top of each image is the accuracy of the network as a function of the iteration of the training. The orange graphs represent losses. Both of these were trained with 5,000 samples each of LTE, WiMAX, and noise signals, and both ran for 23,400 iterations. The right training was performed with correctly labeled data. The left training was performed with mislabeled or dirty data. This was used to simulate the probability that data collected from the real world will not always be clean, and tolerances should be observed when dealing with predictive models. We are currently in the process of implementing a long short-term memory architecture. These are used in speech recognition and adapt at time series classification. We're optimistic about the results this will yield and will keep you updated on our progress. While our results for convolutional neural nets have been in the 95% accuracy range, we still need to implement validation testing that was not included in the training to rule out the network only learning the specific signal trained and not the class of signal at large. We will also be adding OFDM signal to achieve our ultimate goal of distinguishing between 4 separate classes with 3 of them closely resembling each other. We will briefly see if multiple layers helps with accuracy. With the limited shape of our data, additional layers may not be worth the 30 to 40 minutes needed to run a single training on a neural net consisting of 2 convolution layers. Lastly, we are still looking for an additional architecture to test outside of the multilayer perceptron, CNN, and LSTM. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. As we have discussed, the problem of congestion in the electromagnetic spectrum is one that needs solved. With the ever-growing number of devices added daily, reliability is sure to be hampered further. This project is a first step to solving a potentially global problem. To date, we have had great results separating signal from noise with a convolutional neural network. Testing has also eliminated multilayer perceptrons as an option worth pursuing. Efforts going forward will focus on expanding the convolutional neural network to categorize the signals into LTE, OFDM, WiMAX, and noise. And we will also test a long short-term memory recurrent neural network and compare the accuracies with the convolutional neural net. With training, we hope to find the parameters that will help us reach the 90% accuracy that we have set as our goal. So now I'll hand off to Jim Stewart, and he will provide a more complete wrap-up and also have a question and answer session. Thank you.